I still remember the hollow tick of the office clock as I stared at my computer screen, blinking in disbelief. It was 6:17 p.m. on a Wednesday, the after-hours lull, when most of the building was already darkened cubicles and empty coffee mugs. I'd just opened a password-protected folder buried so deep in the company server, it felt like the digital equivalent of spelunking. Inside, I found the smoking gun, board-approved memos, doctored financials, and a meticulous plan to siphon millions from our clients under the guise of operational optimization fees. My boss, Martin Carrington, CEO, chairman and the architect of countless motivational posters plastered around the hallway, had orchestrated it. And I, his most trusted operations analyst, had stumbled on it by accident. I sank back in my chair and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The fluorescent overhead lights hummed ominously, as though complicit in the conspiracy. Outside my window, the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows between the twin towers of Stamford and Blake Consulting. My heart hammered in my ears: expose him and watch him burn, or stay silent and stay safe. The discovery it began 2 weeks earlier, on a routine audit. I'd been examining our vendor payments, milk toast work, rows of numbers nobody looked at twice. My fingers danced across the keyboard, reconciling each invoice with our contract management system. And then I noticed it, a $2 million consulting advance to a shell company named Silver Oak Strategies, tied to Carrington's signature for approval. My first thought, typo. But a quick lookup showed Silver Oak Strategies was registered less than a month ago, at an address matching Carrington's private estate. No website, no staff, just a letterhead. My stomach dropped. I flagged the discrepancy and scheduled a meeting with my manager, Emily Nguyen. She was sharp, laid back in her denim jackets and Eastern European directness. I said in her office, eyes darting to her screensaver of her newborn daughter. What do you make of this? I slid the invoice across her desk. She squinted. Silver Oak Strategies, never heard of them. Check the GRC logs. She tapped a few keys. Nothing on due diligence. Huh, that's odd. I swallowed. It's approved by Carrington. Her brow furrowed. No one bypasses due diligence, no one. Let me see that file. She pored over the contract documents, her expression darkening. That's direct approval. He must have overridden the system. My pulse quickened. Why? Emily shook her head. No clue. But you're onto something. Let's dig deeper. We spent that night poring over hundreds of spreadsheets, server logs, and board minutes. Every trail led back to Carrington's signature, either digital or inked. The more we found, the more obvious it became. He'd built a secret revenue mechanism outside official channels, skimming hefty sums and excluding the finance team. If we reported it to internal auditors, Carrington would detect our investigation, and we'd be toast. Calculating risks. That evening, I walked to the little cafe across the street, the Rusty Kettle, for a double espresso and perspective. The barista, Liam, greeted me with a sleepy grin. Rough night, I hesitated, then nodded. Long story. He slid the espresso across the counter. On the house. I like your sweater. I thanked him, took a sip, and stared out the window at the empty sidewalk. My hands trembled slightly. Exposing Carrington would save the company and dozens of clients from financial ruin, but it would destroy my career too. He was ruthless. He knew how to wield power, lurid headlines in the business press, plausible deniability, and a network of loyal seniors. Back at my apartment, I lay awake until 2 a.m., weighing my options. Stay silent. Ride it out until my contract ended in 6 months. Risk perpetuating the fraud. Quiet resignation. Leave the firm, but take the evidence to the authorities or press. Face Carrington's legal wrath. Internal exposure. Take it to the board. Maybe Emily and I could find allies. CFO, compliance head, HR director. But Carrington controlled the board's agenda. Go public. Leak it to the press anonymously. Ruin him, but also burn my bridges. By dawn, I decided I couldn't sleep, knowing innocent clients were funding Carrington's secret vault. But I needed a plan, a way to topple him without being flattened myself. Daylight brought a fierce clarity. I emailed Emily, meet at 7 p.m. coffee shop. Underneath, I copied the CFO, Marcus Denton. He was old school, ivory tower with zero tolerance for shady accounting. If anyone could call a board meeting, it was him. By noon, Marcus and Emily had confirmed. We'd meet after hours at the Corner Brew, far enough from the office that lip readers wouldn't spot us. That afternoon, I sent a for your eyes only message to the head of internal audit, Priya Rao, with a sanitized executive summary of the findings. My palms were damp as I hit send. Priya replied within an hour. This is serious, Janet. Let's convene tonight. We have to follow protocol. Protocol meant gathering evidence, documenting every step, and then bringing it to the audit committee under board oversight. If we approached it carefully, we could force the hand of the board chair, someone not in Carrington's pocket. Late night strategy, at 7 p.m., the Corner Brews jazz playlist hummed low. Steam curled from ceramic mugs. The three of us huddled in a booth by the back window. Marcus and Emily looked grim. I opened my laptop, password protected with layers of corporate-grade encryption. Here's the evidence, I said. Payments to Silver Oak Strategies, total $17.8 million in the last 9 months. Board minutes authorizing special projects, funding that never showed in P&L. Emails from Carrington's personal assistant canceling due diligence tokens. Marcus scanned the PDF, lips thinning. That's overwhelming. Priya nodded, arms folded. We confirm this, and the board must act. Carrington's breached fiduciary duty. He's legally exposed. Emily leaned forward. We need to prepare the audit committee packet, cover letter, evidence, legal references. Then we request an emergency board meeting per bylaw 4B. It requires 1 shareholder plus 2 committee members. I exhaled. I've got my share certificate. I own 1.2%. Marcus, you have 2.5. Priya and I can be committee members. He smiled grimly. Then we have the numbers. But we need to move on 2 fronts. Draft the packet and protect the evidence chain. We can't let IT purge logs when Carrington catches wind. Priya pulled out her phone. I'll covertly copy everything to the audit server off-site. Then we have proof if anything disappears. I closed the laptop. I'll prepare the cover letter. Emily, you refine the legal citations. We divided tasks and sat in the murky glow of the cafe, hushed voices overlapping coffee clanks. Outside, the city lights winked in patterns that felt both comforting and conspiratorial. First strike by the next evening, we were ready. Priya loaded encrypted files onto a secure audit portal. Marcus printed the cover letter on official CFO stationery. Subject: Emergency Audit Committee Review, Carrington Financial Misconduct. Emily attached annotated legal memos. I assembled the binder with tab dividers. A. Financial transactions. Board resolutions. C. Email correspondence. Potential liability. At 5:50 p.m., we walked into the cavernous boardroom together. The door whispered shut behind us. Carrington was already there, pacing, phone pressed to his ear. When he saw us, he cut the call and raised an eyebrow. Marcus stepped forward, binder in hand. Lawrence, we're convening the audit committee now. He blinked. Audit committee, I set the binder on the polished table. Pursuant to bylaw 4B, we have majority of shareholders and committee members. We must review allegations of financial misconduct. Carrington's face flickered. Annoyance. Then something darker. He gestured. Everyone out, please. The room cleared except for Priya, Emily, Marcus, Carrington, and me. The 6 board members on the committee filtered in from anteroom chairs. Carrington straightened, clearing his throat. I'm surprised. What's this about? Marcus spoke. We have evidence you approved unauthorized payments and concealed them from the board and the audit team. Carrington's practiced mask slipped. Unauthorized? You have no proof. I slid the binder toward him. Proof is here. He paled, flipping to the first tab. The detailed audit trail glowed under the meeting room lights. Invoice trails, signatures, canceled due diligence flags. Carrington's voice was low and dangerous. This is impossible. Someone set me up.
See.
Priya tapped her tablet. We copied logs before you could delete them. He rose, raising a fist.
See.
I will sue every one of you for defamation. I will destroy you. His gaze roved the anxious faces. And when I win, I promise each of you will regret this day. Emily's jaw set. We have witnesses, timestamps, bank transfers. This is the end, Lawrence. He took a shuddering breath, then slumped into a chair, pressing his hands to his face. I closed my eyes for a moment, sympathy warring with triumph. He'd been a mentor, a tyrant, my career's gatekeeper. Now the gates had swung shut on him. The committee chair cleared her throat. We will reconvene tomorrow for the final vote. You are suspended, Carrington, pending investigation. I nodded, fighting the rush of adrenaline. Tomorrow the company would wake under new leadership. But tonight, behind these walls, in this moment, I had exposed my toxic boss's secret scheme. His career had just begun to collapse, and the next shareholder meeting would seal his fate. As I left the boardroom, binder in hand, the hallway lights flooded me in pale blue luminescence. I allowed myself a small, victorious smile. Tomorrow they'd read the headlines, but tonight I savored the quiet after the storm. When I returned to my desk the next morning, the silence was surreal. The hum of the coffee machine in the cafe felt distant, as though I were hearing it through a thick wall of glass. Usually by 8 a.m., the office roared with activity: help desk tickets, Slack pings, the clatter of keystrokes. Today it was muted, cautious. I booted up my computer and pulled up the company intranet. The banner had been updated overnight. Notice: Lawrence Carrington has been suspended pending investigation. Janet Lee, interim CEO. Underneath, a brief statement from the audit committee. My fingers hovered over the mouse. I could taste the panic in the air. My phone buzzed, a message from Emily. Board vote is at 1 p.m. Be ready. Beneath, an attachment, the draft of the resolution of removal, stating effective immediately, Lawrence Carrington would be removed as director and chairman, banned from the premises, and barred from access to any company systems. I exhaled. That was the finish line. 1 p.m., conference room A. The board members gathered again, this time in formal attire. The CFO, Marcus, sat at the head of the table, flipping through stack of papers. Emily and Priya perched on his sides. I stood at the foot, crossing my arms, scanning the familiar faces, some anxious, some defiant, some still loyal to the fallen titan. Marcus cleared his throat. We are convened for the vote on Resolution 7B, removal of Mr. Lawrence Carrington as CEO, Chairman, and Director. Shall we proceed? He looked at each member in turn. The chairs we'd filled with proxies yesterday were now physical bodies. Jim from Echelon Capital, Nora from General Mills Ventures, Sarah from the Founders Fund, and a handful of others. One by one, they voiced their votes. Yes, 2 no votes came from board members who had been personally loyal to Lawrence, the former sales VP, who muttered, "He saved my career," and the PR head, who whispered, "He built our reputation." But a shareholder's proxy clause required only a simple majority, and with our 1.2% majority, the yes votes were decisive. When the final yes rang out, a dry wave of relief washed over me. Emily looked at me with bright eyes. I allowed myself a brief, triumphant smile. Marcus hammered the gavel. It is resolved. Lawrence Carrington is removed as CEO and chairman of Sinclair and Blake Consulting, effective immediately. A murmur of conversation began, executives whispering in clusters, HR heads mobilizing to deactivate badges. The 2 dissenters looked as though they'd swallowed steel. Marcus turned to me. Interim CEO, Lee, would you like to say a few words? I closed my eyes for a moment, thinking of the $17 million that had been siphoned, the contracts that had been manipulated, the careers nearly destroyed. Then I met their eyes. I want to thank the board for their courage and the audit committee for their diligence. I began. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Sinclair and Blake Consulting stands at a crossroads. We will rebuild trust with our clients, our partners, and our employees by demonstrating that integrity, not deception, drives success. Today's action shows that no one is above our values. Our first order of business is implementing transparent audit controls and launching client assurance programs. Tomorrow we begin work on remediating any harm caused. Together we will emerge stronger. I stepped back, letting my words settle. A few people nodded. 1 or 2 wiped tears. Day 3. Damage control and rapid response. Over the next 48 hours, I spearheaded a crisis response team. Emily led legal and compliance. Priya oversaw internal audit follow-up. Marcus handled finance and treasury, while I directed client communications and operations. We issued a press release by noon. Sinclair and Blake announces leadership change, pledges full cooperation with external audit. On date, Sinclair and Blake Consulting's board of directors removed Lawrence Carrington from all executive roles. The firm has initiated a comprehensive internal and external audit to ensure full transparency and client protection. Janet Lee, formerly COO, serves as interim CEO. Within 24 hours, emails flooded from clients, some angry, some relieved, most seeking reassurance. I personally wrote to our 10 largest accounts, detailing the exact measures we'd taken to safeguard their projects and funds. I scheduled video conferences to answer questions, provide documentation, and recommit to contracted KPIs. By the end of the second day, client sentiment trackers showed a 70% drop in negative mentions and a steady trickle of affirmations. Thank you for your transparency. We value your quick response. Let's move forward. Simultaneously, we quieted internal speculation. I held a town hall meeting for all 300 employees. Standing at the podium, I acknowledged the shock and hurt many must have felt. I committed to an open-door policy, weekly AMAs, and a volunteer task force to review and improve our ethical guidelines. Afterward, I spent hours at desks, listening, fielding questions, and handing out coffee. By the day's end, the apathy and fear had begun to thaw into cautious optimism. Week 2, the aftermath and new beginnings. A full week later, I paused in the newly christened Strategic Operations War Room, my former corner office, repainted in soft gray with a single banner overhead. Truth is our North Star. On one wall, screens tracked real-time dashboards, financial flows, client sentiment, compliance tickers. Emily appeared at the door, folder in hand. Janet, the external auditors are here. Deloitte just pulled the first tranche of data. I zeroed in on a screen showing audit progress at 40%. Good, let's aim for completion by month end. She nodded. Clients have already expressed their appreciation. Morale is up. Even sales is ahead of Q2 projections by 12%. A smile curved my lips. That's what happens when trust returns. She hesitated, then asked, "How are you holding up?" I sank into my chair. Busy, but good. I've been working toward this for 2 weeks, but I still feel like I'm building the plane as it flies. She gave a small laugh. You've earned this. You deserve it. I nodded, watching the flicker of numbers on the screen. No one person built Sinclair and Blake alone. It's a collective effort. Now we steer it. 6 months later, a firm built on integrity. Half a year after the exposé, Sinclair and Blake stood transformed. Our new leadership team grew. A seasoned CMO joined to rebrand our public image with the tagline, "Integrity in Action." We rolled out Project Lighthouse, a suite of tools enabling clients to view their billing, project status, and audit logs in real time. We published biannual transparency reports, detailing profits, expenses, and compliance metrics. Our stock, battered by scandal, had rebounded to pre-crisis levels. Client renewals soared to 92%, a record high. Employee engagement scores jumped 30 points. Our retention rate soared. We were honored with a Corporate Ethics Award from the National Consulting Association. I stood on the stage at the awards ceremony, accepting the trophy for Best Turnaround Strategy, and scanned the crowd. Emily, Priya, Marcus, the committee members, all stood clapping, genuine smiles on their faces. Even 2 of the board dissenters joined in. On the way home that night, I reflected on the journey, how I found the first clue in an invoice, how Emily, Priya, and Marcus joined forces, how we conjured a corporate exorcism of Carrington's toxic legacy. The thrill of exposure, the fear of backlash, and the hard work of rebuilding had converged into an outcome I never imagined possible. I realized that leadership isn't about titles or authority. It's about courage, collaboration, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths. True power lies not in holding secrets, but in shining a light on them. As I unlocked my front door, I raised the award from the car seat like a chalice. To honesty, I whispered, before setting it on the mantle, a reminder that even the darkest schemes can't flourish under scrutiny, and that integrity, once restored, reaps its own rewards.